Good afternoon, everybody. We might just wait another 30 seconds before we get started. There's lots of people coming in. We've had 123 people register for the webinar this afternoon, so it shows great interest in this topic. So welcome. Thanks for giving up your lunch hour. For those who don't know me, my name is Kelly Andrews. I'm the CEO of Healthy Cities Australia, previously Healthy Cities Illawarra. And I would start this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the lands of which we gather this afternoon. I'm coming from Dharawal people, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander joining us this afternoon. And as it is National Reconciliation Week, we should reflect on the deep connections First Nations peoples have with country, the land, the waters, and the food. And as we come together to talk about food, we recognise that does begin with country, and we honour and acknowledge the knowledge and care that has sustained these food systems on country for tens of thousands of years. So I've got about a 20-minute presentation, and then we'll hand over for Q&A, which you can use using the Q&A function in the chat. I'd like to introduce Melinda Lawton, who's on screen. Melinda's been employed as the project manager for the Regional Food Hub, and Grace Potter is our Fair Food Coordinator here at Healthy Cities, and she sort of coordinates Food Fairness Illawarra, but also one of our bigger grant projects that I'll talk about in 1 second. So they will come in at Q&A as well. So just as a way of background, Food Fairness Illawarra has been a coalition working in the region since 2005. Today we are launching a refreshed website of Food Fairness. So this is just a screenshot, but hop on after today and have a little look around the website. We've refreshed it specifically to make it easier for food rescue and food relief providers. There's still a lot of information about the other elements of the work of food fairness, but in this refreshed website, we're really trying to make it easier to navigate for food rescue organisations and food relief providers. By way of background also, in the Illawarra Shoalhaven, the landscape around working in food security is quite vast. And in 2025, so not even 12 months ago, there is a new Illawarra Shoalhaven Food Futures Task Force, which is auspiced by RDA Illawarra Shoalhaven, and has brought together a great scape of stakeholders in the food system at a very holistic level. It has these 6 pillars, and of course the Food Hub probably goes across the top 3 there. However, at the starting point, it's really trying to get to the heart of food security and access for Illawarra residents. So, as I mentioned, Food Fairness was originally a coalition established by Healthy Cities, the local health district's health promotion unit, Wollongong, Shellharbour and Kiama councils, and the University of Wollongong. So the region really has a very strong track record in working together in collaboration for issues affecting food systems and food insecurity. And some of the milestones or highlights of this collaborative work are that we, or those, that came before us in FFI in 2007, actually lobbied and successfully brought OzHarvest down from Sydney to Wollongong, and a few years later brought a second van. In 2009, there was a state New South Wales Food Summit, and the Food Fairness Coalition at that time organised an Illawarra Regional Food Forum. And from that came strategies and activities and coalitions and events to raise awareness of food insecurity and food systems work. In 2014, there was a specific food rescue and relief working group established as a subgroup of FFI. So you can see that the work in this area has been going on for a long time. Some of the other products of food fairness on the website you'll find is the low cost and free meals directory, and that's probably the most downloaded resource on the website. It's also in printed copies in different community centres around the region, but that is kept up to date and is a comprehensive directory where people can find, as the name suggests, low cost and free meals. There were annual events connecting over fair food, and continuous advocacy with our partners. In 2024, we were successful in getting an EPA-funded grant as a coordinating organisation called the Illawarra Food Donations Project. And that project was essentially a 3-year project to increase food donations from going to landfill and get it to the food relief providers that are providing much needed food relief. And Grace Potter, hopefully she's in the audience now, is the project manager of that. And as part of that project, we are working with these 10 MOU partners to increase the food donated and diverted from landfill by 20% and getting it to the food relief providers so that they have more food to give to their clients essentially. So these are our 10 MOU partners who are the founding partners of what we have identified is the need for an Illawarra Food Hub. So let's just look at the EPA's perspective. So as the funder, they're really coming from an environmental perspective. And we all know the amounts of food waste nationally in New South Wales and in Wollongong. So around $2.5 billion worth of food is wasted in New South Wales every year and is a huge major methane source contributing to emissions. 30% of the food of the red waste, the red bins in Wollongong LGA are actually food scraps, which should be FOGO'd. And you know, we're obviously trying to get businesses and homes to FOGO more, but 30% is still a huge amount of food waste. And national data shows around 75 to 92% of unsold foods by retailers is edible. So there's a huge amount of food in the system being wasted. And people are going hungry. So this is some data just to highlight the growing concerns around food security in Australia. So 95% of Australians are concerned about the rising cost of living. Now on top of this, we have fuel crisis contributing to the pressures of cost of food. And the cost of food is their top concern. So 62% are citing the cost as being a barrier to healthier nutrition and eating habits. 1 in 3 households in the Illawarra experiencing food insecurity in the past year. That was from a survey done by our colleagues at UAW, which was last year. And that includes 12% of people experiencing severe insecurity. So food insecurity is a continuum. You know, people can go up and down from mild, moderate, and severe insecurity. And severe insecurity is pretty much defined by skipping meals and going hungry, potential weight loss, and a lot of health concerns for that. And 52% of university students are emerging as an at-risk group, also of severe food insecurity. This data just highlights the demand from some of the bigger charities like OzHarvest. So this is very recent data from their frontline report earlier this year. And so the charities are telling OzHarvest that they have had an increase in demand of about increased demand in the last 12 months. 36 are seeking food relief for the first time. The charities that OzHarvest serviced are stretched beyond their limits, and for the first time, OzHarvest are turning people away. And even in the Illawarra, they have a very, very long wait list of charities and community groups that are wanting OzHarvest's services. And so without food relief, households are vulnerable to other social stresses. You know, we know that there's poorer educational outcomes, increased domestic violence, and long-term health consequences. And in the Illawarra, we have about 37 food relief agencies. Some are big, you know, like Vinnie's and Anglicare, and then there are lots of smaller ones, your community centres, doing absolutely incredible work. That doesn't include schools. And we know that schools are pseudo food hubs, providing food and pantry items to their families, doing it tough. When we know that most of those food relief providers are not funded to provide food relief either. So they do it because they have to. Their clients coming to them are food insecure. And it's also a really great way to get people who need some assistance in the door. So they might come for food relief, but they're also connected to essential services and support that they really need. But this is putting pressure on those staff. It's taking staff away from their frontline services. And all of those agencies each need to resource that in some way. They need to put time and effort into managing volunteers. They need storage, they need transport, and they're all putting a lot of work into forming, you know, good relationships with food donors. So whether that's their local IGA or a bigger supermarket or their local clubs, there's a lot of time and effort going into this in all over the region. So what they're telling us is that the problem is not the lack of food. There's a problem with the lack of transport and storage and logistics so that they can accept more food and give out more food, and they can scale their processes. So it got us to thinking, what if we came together as a region to think about this differently? How can we pool resources for a shared purpose? Can we deduplicate and streamline the system so that everybody wins? So the proposal that we've been working on with our 10 MOU partners and with the Food Rescue and Relief Working Group is to establish a bricks and mortar hub to rescue, aggregate, store and redistribute more surplus food across the region. So this would mean a centralised intake, a warehouse essentially, where food can be delivered. We look at the quality of the food and can sort it, can store it safely in fridges and freezers and adequate shelving, and then efficiently redistribute to community food providers through transport. So refrigerated vans, normal vans, software. And this is what we think is the starting point. So beyond that, you know, there's so many possibilities for the food hub after this initial phase, but this is what we're here today to let you know about. So the objectives, obviously, for a hub is to provide food, improve food security for vulnerable households across the Illawarra region. as I mentioned, that centralisation of the distribution, storage and logistics, to expand the partnerships with councils and community groups of businesses, food rescue groups, and reduce the environmental impacts and emissions from food waste. And what we hope will be the immediate and long-term outcomes will be consistent and dignified access to fresh, affordable food, that nobody's going hungry in this rich world of ours. Reduce the duplication, reduce operational costs for community centres across the region, and scale this. So we know that once we get off the ground, Second Bite can deliver pallets, Food Bank, Oz Harvest, we have the bigger players on board. We can scale the food rescue and then most importantly, the distribution to the community centres out there that are doing the hard work. And by the way, Victoria are streets ahead of us. They have, I think they have 5. These are just 3 examples of food hubs in Victoria. Some of them have been operational for more than 10 years. We can't find a single one at this scale in New South Wales. So this would be a state first, and, you know, what a better place to put it. We have worked on some governance around what the food hub, how it might work. And about 2 weeks ago, the inaugural steering committee did meet, agreed on it, set terms of reference, and are ready to go to assist in bringing this to life. So as you can see from the names on the screens and the organisations that they're from, we've tried to get a breadth of community providers, food relief providers, food rescue, some Indigenous knowledge, and also looking beyond the immediate hub processes, but looking this as a regional resource for training, training and employment pathways as well. So it will cost some money. So we know to get up and running, the costings, and Melinda will be able to talk more to this in the Q&A. To get up and running in the first year, we're looking at about $1.5 million to cover staffing and then the site and all the equipment and infrastructure needed. In our advocacy and our other grant applications, we are looking at multi-year funding and looking at a longer 5-year period, because obviously we don't want to set ourselves up for failure and get up and running and then fall down after 1 year. So we're really looking at 3 to 5 years. And so capital expenditure in year 1 is nearly $500,000. With nearly $1 million operational costs every year. And this is why I think we need to think about these differently. Not one organisation has the capacity to service this alone, but if we can think about the benefits for the region by pooling resources, whether that's in-kind, financial, influence, advocacy, I think that's where the conversation needs to go to make this truly sustainable for the region into the future. So the funding will go to the hub infrastructure, getting a site, fitting that site out so it's fit for purpose, getting all the, the storage things in place, and ongoing operational costs. And we have been working very hard writing grant applications. We've written, I can't even remember how many in the last 6 months, probably at least 6. Particularly, we have put in a submission with Wollongong Homeless Hub and Housing Services actually being the lead agency in this regional New South Wales Community Partnership Grant. That's due to be announced by the end of June. It's up around the $1 million mark, and if successful, we will have a site in Unanderra and we will be up and running by October this year on a small scale, starting with those 10 MOU partners to begin with, so that we can, iron out the processes and get things working really well. So that is one opportunity in the pipeline. We've also been obviously presenting to local councils and having meetings with our state and federal MPs to just start talking about the need for the hub. We know there's a state election next year, so we're really trying to, work on the political advocacy for this as well. Melinda's been working very hard with the business case and feasibility study such that we can be prepared for bigger grants, philanthropic donations and so forth as well. And this is a picture of us a few weeks, maybe a month ago, where we were quite fortunate to have some pro bono volunteer support from the KPMG in Sydney, who helped, refine the business case and really kind of give it that edge that we were lacking. And today also we are launching a GoFundMe page or a campaign to raise some money. So our target is $137,000 in the GoFundMe campaign. So this is live as of today. So we're officially launching this. We've got $5 in the kitty so far. It can be found via the Food Fairness Illawarra website. And this funding will go towards setting up, what have we got? So some premises, the purchase of a refrigerated van, the adequate shelving, a forklift, the cooler and freezer rooms, shelving, pallet racking, and some costs such as electricity and fuel. So we're trying to attack this from lots of different angles. And just to sort of review and sort of wrap up, we know there are really strong social, environmental and economic reasons for pursuing this, increasing access to healthy, culturally appropriate and fresh food, reducing stigma to accessing food relief, strengthening the whole community connections and volunteer capacity throughout the region. It's going to lower the pressure for households who are food insecure and community organisations that are running on the smell of an oily rag. We're hoping in the future it will create jobs through operations, logistics, drivers, admin and support roles as it grows. And obviously the environmental impacts is the reduction in methane emissions through food waste, lower carbon emissions from less transport costs, and improve sustainability through reusing, recycling and composting. And the long-term community benefits, I think I've explained most of this pretty well, but we really believe there are precedents in Victoria. We know we've been visiting some of these hubs and seeing how they operate. We've got really strong networks already in the Illawarra, really strong partnerships, and I think that the reduced cost burdens for communities and governments is a great reason for us to give this a red hot go. So as an outcome for today, we would really love for you, if you don't already subscribe to the Food Fairness Illawarra newsletters, to do so, and we'll give updates and progress reports about the progress of the hub on those newsletters and also the socials. So follow and share them. Follow it and share the socials that we'll do from today and any media we get from today. Donate to the GoFundMe campaign and share and help promote the GoFundMe campaign, and get in touch with Melinda or myself if you would like to learn more or get involved in any other way. So we'll throw over to the Q&As if anyone has one, and I'll let Melinda or Steph kind of guide the questions. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Hi, Kelly.
I can't see any questions, but if you can see them, if you read them out.
Yes, I can. One of the questions is, will we be expanding the hub? So I'm happy to answer this. So at the moment, what we're looking at is just positioning ourselves within the Illawarra region and looking at being centralised so that no one food agency has to travel more than sort of half their distance to the centre of the region. But we all know that food insecurity is throughout the country. So eventually what we would like to do is expand down to the Shoalhaven. But also, as Kelly said, we want to create this model so that this can be replicated throughout New South Wales. So again, we need something out in the regional areas. So it's, if we do this right and we get the mix correct, then there's no reason why we can't sort of scale this and to have that in different regions. So yes, eventually we will, but we'd really like to make the existing model work seamlessly. And then when we do sort of branch out to other regions, then we know that it's sort of successful and it's just a matter of doing or finding a site and going from there. So
there was a question about who we hope will find the project, and I guess the answer is any group that is involved in providing food to the community, but also the hospitality sector and retail perhaps, that are quite nervous about donating food. So the other part to this project, and something that Grace has been working on, is an education piece around the legalities of donating food. So there are laws protecting hospitality or people providing donated food if it leaves their hands in a safe, edible way and given to a charity in good faith, and that charity is going to feed people. Of course, what we're finding is that, say, if there's a big catering function at the Novotel and with a whole, leftover food, they don't have the capacity to store it safely, and there's nowhere to take it to be stored safely until it's redistributed. So that's the other part of the puzzle that we're hoping that a hub can solve, is to make it easier for catering and for functions and for hospitality. Hospitals produce a lot of food. Like, anyone who is producing surplus food that need to take it somewhere safely where it can be redistributed in a timely fashion to people, that is also a huge potential for the hub.
There's just another question here that's just asking whether individuals from community can attend the hub. So at the moment, to set up, as we're going to do with our 10 MOU partners, we will just have more of a business-to-business focus, or just to actually, again, doing the refining the actual operations. But eventually, as Kelly said before, we see that there's unlimited options for this food hub to become. So eventually, yes, it could look like something like a community supermarket, or it could be a community garden. So there's lots of different aspects and just different directions that we can go, but for the short term, it'll just be business to business.
There was a question around the opening date. So we are, I wouldn't say quietly confident, let's just say we are optimistic and hopeful that the current grant of a decent size will come to fruition, and we'll know about that in June. And if we do, then we will be able to be operational by October. That's just one grant opportunity. Obviously, with any delay, it just pushes it back. We do have a end time limit, I guess, with all of the constraints of our own budget, and also the timeline of the EPA budget, which is May next year. So, with all of our situations with grant funding, they're short term. So regardless of getting a hub up and running, in order to continue to work in food rescue and relief, we need to be constantly seeking funds to do that anyway. So ambitiously. We're up and running in October at a small scale. And then in between, in the meantime, we have we're working on a marketing plan and communications plan, I guess, just to tell everyone in the region, business chambers and the like, that we are hopefully open for business.
Okay, I'm not sure, Kelly, if we have anything more. Not that I can see. But yeah, just the same as Kelly, we're really, really excited by this project. And on one hand, it's so sad that we actually need this type of a project and these sort of agencies. But on the other hand, it's about now working together as a community and as a region to make sure that no one does go without food. We all know that without food, it just makes everything else that comes after it so much more difficult. So, as Kelly said, just tell everybody, let them all know what's happening, and feel free to email, or I think my number's on there too as well. For anything any questions or how you can help, how you can volunteer in the future, just sing out and we'll let you know.
Well, if there is no further questions, so just again like to thank everyone for giving up your time. We really just wanted the opportunity to give the background of how the idea for the hub was identified, and let you know about the new website, the GoFundMe page, to sign up to all the communications, to get in touch if you're interested. And thanks again for your support and your interest in today's webinar.